This is Hungary for Change, and we're broadcasting live. I'm Drew Leifheit. Today's show is called Reinventing Hungary's Media. When I first think of that, I usually think of the huge state radio and TV apparatus, as well as the propaganda organizations which received huge contracts under the previous government here in Hungary. But of course, it also pertains to all kinds of media and PR. To bat these ideas around, let's talk to Balázs Szántó, a veteran communications consultant and the managing partner of Noguchi, one of Hungary's market-leading PR and communications agencies. Balázs got his start there in the early years of the agency and took over day-to-day operations in 2004. That deep experience gives him a unique perspective on Hungary's PR and media markets that he'll be sharing with us today. Welcome, Balázs.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Good to be here.
Happy Monday morning.
Indeed.
So, Balázs, first of all, could you, just in a nutshell, talk about, how I gave you a little intro, but maybe you could talk about what you do today.
Okay. So I lead a 26-person strong communications agency in Hungary. We are mostly involved in public relations, reputation management, and all around communications consulting. Obviously, in PR, much of our work used to be and to some extent remains working with the media, with the traditional news media, that is to say, as well as with digital media from news media all the way to social media and influencers, which is not my forte, but I do try to keep up to date with the latest trends there.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm sure you have kind of a broader perspective on these things, right? If you've been leading a company and people that do these things, right?
I have to, and I'm happy to learn from my younger colleagues who sometimes even my kids find it interesting that I know of people they know of, and they're surprised that a boomer such as I is trying to stay up to date.
You're pretty cool. Balázs, yeah. So as I mentioned, I think you have a unique perspective too, and just to keep in mind, of course, I hope that we have some Hungarians out there listening for your insights, but also, if we could keep in mind that just as this having this as a kind of an explainer to the outside
Mhm.
world, right? So that's it. I think unless you've lived in it, people would not understand what happened in the media here in Hungary.
Right.
And of course, you were also involved in PR with the government before the previous government as well, right? So, was how could you talk a little bit, kind of in broad terms, about what media is like in Hungary?
Okay. Back in the early 1990s, many of the primarily regional media companies, so European media companies, came into the market, acquired various existing media properties, and started their own. For example, commercial television was a new invention in Hungary in the mid 1990s. And before that, we used to have a national broadcaster that had two channels at the time. The country was set up around 19 counties, and each of the counties had one sort of regional or county newspaper, which was the main source of news for on local events and local news for residents there. Many of these were acquired by a handful of either German, Austrian, or in later times, Russian investors. And there was a vibrant media economy with an explosion in commercial broadcasting in the mid 1990s. And starting in 2010, when the previous government first won a supermajority, one of the first acts as a government was new media regulation, because they felt that when they lost power in 2002, it was mainly due to the fact that they did not have their own media ecosystem that they could rely on. And they felt that there was a, I wonder if it's going to sound familiar to any foreign and especially US listeners, the liberal media bias that
Mm-hmm.
they were lamenting about. So they decided to introduce completely new legislative framework for the media, and their various, let's say, economic players, uh, whom we usually refer to as oligarchs, started collecting, so acquiring various media properties, and there was a sort of distributed network of media owners who amassed over 400 media properties over the years. And then after the governing party had a sort of an internal struggle with their, let's say, they had political power in the hands of the prime minister, and they had an economic background in the hands of the prime minister's university roommate. And the two had a falling out in 2015. And after that, there was a massive shift in the media business and media industry. So at some point, all of the various business interests that have acquired media companies and properties in Hungary got up one morning and decided that they are going to gift all of their media properties to a newly formed public benefit foundation called KESMA. It's the Central European Press and Media Foundation, which became the owner of over 400 properties, uh, spanning from local newspapers to a national radio station. This sort of centralized structure was paralleled in government communications. So, in the beginning, they had a huge public contract for all government and state owned businesses' communications needs, distributed along around three players, which gradually became one. So, the media business structure was that the state or the government had a contract with one agency group for all government and state owned enterprise communications. Uh, and they also had a huge media conglomerate that was, they had free market revenue as well, but much of their financing came from state funds funneled through the state appointed agency. And there's a very interesting model that a sociologist, Balázs Szántó, came up with that explains how this entire structure could have collapsed as quickly as we have seen over the last 6 weeks, basically. He originally developed the framework for societies and specifically Hungarian society, and he believes that the structures worked around three axes or three dimensions: trust versus fear, performance versus loyalty, responsibility versus obedience. And the operation of the state connected or state directed media business obviously worked along if you look at these as a spectrum, the locus was around fear, loyalty, and obedience, as opposed to what we would think in a free market system or free market players sort of striving for trust, for performance, and responsibility. And if you look at these three axes or three dimensions, obviously this, uh, I think that the best way to think of it is as a cube, where in one point of the cube, where fear, loyalty, and obedience connect, that is where this whole structure was standing on just a small point. But we thought that this is a balanced system that will stay with us for many, many years. And at that point of space, uh, was this huge media conglomerate, sort of like to quote the poet Matthew Bellamy of Muse, a supermassive black hole that sucked much of the funds and attention from the market into a relatively small point or extremely dense point. That was one of the key points of any media market or communications advertising business in Hungary. Parallel to that, there remained another point of focus, a much smaller black hole, so to say, of independent media. What the government and the governing party usually said was opposition media, although they always defined themselves as independent, both in terms of opinion and in terms of financing. And also what we usually don't talk about is that there's a third point that has to be understood to get a point of how the media business operates in Hungary. And that is the increasingly massive force and vacuum of global players. So Alphabet, Meta, and now Netflix and Amazon. So the global players who are sucking much of the budget out of the local market. And after April 12th this year, when the opposition party won a supermajority in national elections, after a period of just surprised, I'm not even sure how to describe it, but just utter surprise and freezing, the previously state financed and state controlled or governing party controlled media conglomerate started collapsing at an astonishing rate. So almost every day there's news of one or more media properties closing doors because it's earnings season in Hungary. We are seeing the annual reports for media companies, and it's becoming extremely clear that they have built a an unsustainable scaffolding on top of state funds. And as soon as state funds disappeared from the market, if we can call it a market, they started collapsing.
Balázs, this is an amazing situation, and I appreciate you mentioning that. Of course, there was a lot of doom and
Mhm,
gloom with having the state sort of proxy being, controlling by being able to sink in a lot of money to all those outlets
mhm,
that you mentioned. Um, but what a testament to truly free media that had a real effect on this whole
mhm.
situation. Okay, so
Absolutely.
in this context, I do want to touch on your business, and so
Mhm,
so this is really interesting. Like, what how are you seeing this, and what the hell are you going to do? It just seems like a, my lord, what what do we, we knew, that we had these outlets that we could work with. For example, if we makes me think of, let's say, a new company comes to Hungary or
Mhm,
something, wants to establish its media presence, things like that. Now it seems as if things are, yeah, yeah, the foundation has crumbled, really,
mhm.
for a lot of what maybe you would have relied on fairly recently. Is that true?
To some extent, yes. If you look at business as usual, it's not. I mean, the how should I put this? The lazy solution to any communications brief was that, okay, so we need to talk to the National News Agency and we need to talk to a couple of publishing houses, maybe send them some news releases, maybe just place a couple of interviews, and then we're going to have national coverage of tens or, well, probably not hundreds, but tens to 100 just media hits on our hands. The value of those individual hits and basically the majority as a whole was questionable. And what's actually exciting from a professional perspective is that we need to get out of our comfort zones collectively as an industry, because I'm happy to say that my colleagues, many of them former journalists, uh, always strove to actually talk to influential and impactful media, and not go for the sort of the quantity approach, because we believe that 10 quality reports beat 100 throwaway hits any day. But as an industry, we need to rethink our approach and educate our customers, because ever since the early to mid 90s, when public relations got its start in Hungary, uh, led by US based companies, most of whom are no longer involved in the Hungarian PR or communications business. Uh, there was an expectation of mass in terms of the number of pieces of coverage. And even though if you ask a client, whether they want to see that they had, 30, 40 pieces of coverage of a news release, or whether there was an interview with the CEO in Forbes magazine, print of all places, uh, 10 times out of 10, people are going to say that actually that's a super valuable piece of coverage. That's something that my boss is going to be proud of, something that I can be proud of, and that gives me influence with my boss. So I think we have to educate our customers, some of whom don't need to be educated, that because the media ecosystem is changing, we are not going to be uh, going for uh, 30 hits, and B, we are not going to be delivering 30 hits.
It's kind of amazing what has gone on in parallel around the world, even if you just think about the media models that we had, and who buys a newspaper anymore,
Sure.
or do only old people watch state TV, do only old people listen to state radio, things like this. I, as a, yeah, as a person, a fully mature person, I think
Mhm.
it must be incredibly difficult to get out messages, given that, I don't know, who are we going to go through? Influencers, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
What kind of challenges are those? And you have any perspective on sort of what has happened in Hungary in light of what has been happening all around the world?
Okay, one one aspect that I wanted to talk about, because I'm the son of two journalists, and my grandfather used to be a journalist,
Wow.
so
Cool.
it's exciting and gratifying to see that independent media, who survived 16 years of just, you know, I think it's not overly, so we can say that 16 years of persecution and the most difficult situation that you can imagine from a business perspective, they were able to nurture a group of subscribers who are actually paying money for media, because A, they want to read actual real journalism, and B, they want to spend their own money on supporting journalism. And it's going to be interesting to see, as one of the, let's say, formerly state or government friendly media owners said, that now that you've won, let's see if your subscribers are going to stick with you. So that's going to be a challenge. As far as I know, so far, people are sticking to their subscriptions. So there's not the churn that could have been, or may have been expected. But yes, there's a clear shift in attention from traditional media to influencers, and I think that independent media built a a mass of trust over the last, especially 2 years leading up to the election, and since then as well, because they have been. I mean, it's encouraging to see signs of journalism and criticism of the new government's actions already,
Mm.
as journalists should operate.
Thumbs up.
But there's a shift towards people like me, as the Edelman Trust Barometer has been calling them, for I think at least 10 years now. So people trust people like themselves more than any authority figure. Uh, Whether that trust is misplaced is another question. But over the last, let's say, 5 to 8 years, we've been working with influencers much more than I think is healthy for journalism over the long term. And that's a very different business model for all involved. So it's interesting to see that, for example, we had some high profile examples of globally recognized influencers visiting Hungary as part of tourism outreach efforts. And as far as we know, those were not paid partnerships. Those were what were originally called fem trips, or just media tours. So people are invited, they are treated to a super experience, and then they can go back and they can publish their stories, or in these cases, just shoot, edit, and share videos of their experiences. Whereas Hungarian influencers have an approach, and they have been led to operate in a way that you know I will not get out of bed unless you pay me. So there's an interesting question of whether you can trust someone who ostensibly is just like you, but is being paid to like something, or not like something, but to try an experience or try a product or recommend a product. There's been, I think, good and positive changes in legislation, requiring all involved to very clearly label any paid cooperation as such, which is a given in traditional media, and it's been that way ever since 1990 or so,
Mm.
maybe 93. I'm not sure off the top of my head when the legislation originally appeared. But the main question in our business, I think, is who are people going to be trusting, and how can we build relationships with those opinion leaders, uh, according to the old terms, or influencers according to the new terms, who are going to be trusted by our target audience, and who are going to show ethics
Now,
as.
now you touched upon something. Of course, I'm trying not to be bald liberalish too
Mm,
much, but you made me think of that huge propaganda apparatus
right.
that was funded by the government, and I am curious now if it folds, whether most of those people will be unemployed, and what they actually believed in. Were they, are they just opportunists making huge money? Pushing these messages, or are these things that they actually believe in? It'll be interesting to see as time passes. But I'm wondering, what kind of influence do you think, when you have people who are just clearly paid by the government to push messages,
Mhm.
how much influence do you think they actually have?
Huh. If you look at the results on April 12th, not much. So basically, we thought that this was an all-conquering, all-powerful monolith that would steamroller anyone who got in their way, and they have destroyed the lives and livelihoods of many people who decided to raise their voices. Uh, but it looks like either they never had any influence with the public, or there've been some reports. For example, one of the journalists at 444, one of the independent media outlets, uh, wrote a very personal report about her mom uh, getting free or getting out from under the influence of the propaganda machine, and
Mm.
her wide-eyed discovery of things that her daughter has been saying for years or a decade. But reading about, the various scandals or issues that. Sorry, the dog's barking.
It's okay.
So reading and hearing about stuff that her daughter could not explain to her, and she wouldn't listen. Now there's sort of a moment of awakening for many people, it seems, and there's also a moment of I don't really know what, or I don't want to sort of classify it as anything, but for example, almost every week there's someone from the propaganda machine who comes forward and shares their experiences, and tries to explain away how or why they were part of the machine. Uh, I didn't hear any of them saying sorry. They just say that they had their reasons, and yes, they had some misgivings, but everybody's was doing the same. So besides, it reminds me so much of the Nuremberg trials.
Mm.
They did it because they were ordered to. They just followed orders. It's not
Right,
their responsibility.
right. Sounds like a weak
Everyone
excuse,
was
huh?
doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. If you're just joining us, my guest today is Balázs Szántó. He is the head of Noguchi, which is one of the biggest PR agencies in Hungary. Whew. Um, you had me when you were talking about kind of tourism influencers.
Mhm.
Um, you kind of struck a chord with me about um, the overall reputation of Hungary. What's your take on, what happened? It also makes me think of the United States right now. Maybe a lot
Uh-huh.
of people are not going to show up to the
Yep.
World Cup because of things have happened in the domestic and international political scene. But how would you have characterized Hungary before all these 16 years and sort of
Mhm.
subsequently? What do you think happened, or how do people what's people's take on Hungary from a PR standpoint?
It's interesting. Let me approach it from a different perspective. How people feel now, how Hungarians feel now, because I heard from a number of people that before, when I was abroad, I tried to not discuss where I'm from because apprehensive of what people would say. Uh, I saw a couple sort of similar experiences from US friends as well over the last several years. Um, but now it actually is a point of pride and a positive, good conversation starter to say that, I'm Hungarian, I'm from Hungary, and yes, I did vote for the new government. So that's one of the editors in chief of a major publication said a couple weeks ago at a conference that it's refreshing to breathe fresh air, and that's what the country feels like now. I'm not sure how long it will last, but for now, it's definitely refreshing and freeing. Um, there was another point I want to make.
Mhm, mhm. Well, yeah, I had mentioned, hopefully it jogs your memory, just the parallels between sort of what's happening in the United States, and yeah, just sort of how outsiders feel about Hungary,
Right.
its reputation.
I think that diverges. So one, and what you see in global media and social responses is one is seeing the previous regime as as something to emulate. So a cultural, maybe at least in words, religious, conservative government and state and society as something to aspire to. Um, and I think you know perhaps half of the people saw that as something that they wanted to achieve, and another half saw a cautionary tale that they wanted to avoid. Uh, and I think that there's a complete switch now, where the new system and the new government is seen as as an example to emulate by people who wanted change or want change in their own countries, and a cautionary tale in some circles. But so I don't think that there ever was a sort of a unified opinion of Hungary as a country, as a even as a destination in terms of tourism. But it's they say that there's an old Chinese curse that may you live in interesting times.
Right.
I think these are definitely the most interesting times in 2 or 3 decades.
Mm, definitely, definitely. just I am not apprehensive. I'm excited in many ways about just the opportunity, uh, from the exposure that this has given to
Mhm.
Hungary. I'm sorry that it took 16 years maybe for people to realize what was happening. And we needed to get to a certain point, but um, I find that incredibly exciting. Now, however, just playing devil's advocate a little bit,
Mhm.
I said in a commentary I did a few days ago that in a way, we've been kind of addicted to the steady drip of dysfunction,
Right.
negativity,
Yeah.
corruption, etc., which also I think probably bolstered some of the good, quote unquote, good media outlets, more objective or fact
Mhm.
based. So now, yeah, when I watch Magyar Péter, I watch the my social media feed, and sometimes maybe what he's talking about is totally rational and pragmatic, and it's kind of boring. Where does that leave us? I see that they're putting an incredible amount of effort into um, social media, getting out the
Absolute
message of
cinema
what's going.
is what we've been hearing for weeks as a metaphor for what's going on.
What's that? I
You
didn't
know,
hear the beginning of what you said.
absolute cinema.
Right, right. What she said, yeah, when he saw the
Yeah,
former prime minister on a balcony across the way.
but it's been, it's I think it's the consensus now that what we're seeing for now is the show is absolute cinema, and there is apprehension is an interesting expression. Uh, there's, I think, an increasing demand for action in addition to communications. Uh, but what I wanted to say, there's a friend of mine likened the previous government and the previous system to an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
That it takes time to realize that you're in one, and it takes time and effort and energy and just uh, self-esteem to get out. But sometimes people are stuck in a pattern, and they enter another similar relationship hoping that it's going to be different. I'm not saying that this is going to be a similar relationship, and I absolutely hope that it's not. I don't see signs that it is. I think it's incredibly powerful for a newly elected prime minister to say that, one of my first acts is modifying the constitution to say that, no one, including me, can be prime minister for more than 8 years. So putting a limit on their own power is a good start.
Right. Not to mention cutting their own salary.
That is, yeah, I can see that there's popular demand for that, and it's a good message. It's a positive message, but as a new government, or indeed as any good government, you want to have the best people in government, and the best, or at least some of the best people, are obviously uh, working in the free market, and they are earning much more than public servants earn right now. So I think that, maybe not short term, but mid to long term, there's a need to decide that if we want the best people to work in government, then we need to pay them market rates. And if we want the best people to be members of parliament, and we want them to be independent, we want them to be just, we want them to be public servants, we have to pay them enough so that they are not concerned with getting paid.
What, Balázs, what do you think though of all the social media activity? I think I would definitely attribute the win in part
Mhm.
to having live video broadcasts every day in towns and
Mhm.
villages and huge cities
Mhm.
all across Hungary, working it and just being on all the time. Um, it makes me think of what I learned at a radio station, and I used to get sick of. Oh, why do I have to read the same thing over and over and over? But he definitely
Consistency.
beat the
Yeah.
drum, yeah. So, what in light of that, what do you think about going forward, and what can you do in government, and social media? What do you think they should do?
I'm the first to admit that, during the campaign there were many times when I thought that, okay, this is wrong, or this is just too much. They shouldn't be doing this, or they should be doing less. And time again, I was proven wrong. Uh, but I personally feel that if there is a continuum from, between a 2 minute explainer video and a 3.5 hour, you know Joe Rogan show style podcast, I think that the prime minister and the government should be at the explainer end of the spectrum. I can understand that for now. I mean, there's a lot of the, I don't want to say busy work, but a lot of activity needs to happen behind the scenes, and government needs to be built, and structures need to be set up, which is boring, and people are not interested in boring. uh, and for now, they, on the one hand, they want to be just happy that they are free, and they want to be entertained. So it's going to be interesting to see the balance between, let's say, edutainment and and the absolute cinema that we've been seeing.
And what are your thoughts on the state media apparatus,
Mhm.
Hungarian state TV, Hungarian radio? I actually have, I'm calling him out. I'm not going to tell his name, but I have a friend who's been a translator at the
Mhm.
state news agency for, let's say, 3 decades,
Mhm.
And I have asked him on occasion, how do you feel about translating that propaganda, and he told me there was actually someone in the editorial office, that they
Mhm.
called Pitbull,
Okay.
who was taking care of, the messaging.
Mhm.
What the hell should happen to all these people? Is anyone worth saving? Should they be forced to retire? What are your thoughts? And if we save all of their jobs, um, how would it be possible to
Mhm.
work with them?
I uh, I don't want to judge people. I don't think it's my place, or my sort of role. Uh, there's the justice system for that on the one hand, and there's public opinion on the other. I would take a more systematic approach, and not start with, with people and their jobs and their, what they were doing and what they should be doing. I think it would be proper to start with rethinking whether we need, what sort of public broadcaster we need, uh, whether we need, I think, five TV channels and four national radio stations. I'm pretty sure we don't need more than, let's say, two TV channels and two radio stations. It's sort of a back to basics approach, and don't start with, this is the structure that we have inherited. Start with what people actually need and what we want. And then, as in many other aspects of just society and civic life and the state's role in Hungarian society, just, this is a fresh start and an opportunity to rethink from the ground up the structures that have been built.
Uh, as the head of a PR consultancy, how much is this going to change your approach, or what? How could this change the whole market?
Mhm. I think it's an exciting opportunity because there is a lot of change. There's a lot of systemic uh, rethinking and need for adaptation for businesses. And I think as with, for example, at the in time of COVID, we became, for even for some of our customers who primarily thought of us as, the company that's doing media relations, they found that they can rely on us for advice on communications to a whole, wide range of stakeholders, from internal communication, which I think is still, let's say, underdeveloped in Hungary,
Hmm.
and local businesses, so kind of companies operating in Hungary, uh, from even, I mean, public affairs and government relations as a profession, uh, is something that worked very differently over the last 16 years than what's in the textbooks and what's accepted in general as, as a profession. So this is something that needs to be relearned, and this is something that where we can offer advice and actual services as such.
Cool, cool. All right, Balázs. Well, I've really enjoyed our chat, and my last question is, I'm just wondering, from sort of an information slash truth standpoint, what are your thoughts on going forward in this new Hungarian media landscape?
Mhm. We hosted a group of students a few weeks ago, I think before the elections. But we gave them a brief that they needed to think about, and come up with a strategy and a plan in a couple minutes, just for introducing a new product in the market. And it was interesting to hear that they immediately went to that their thinking was focused on influencers, and also a couple media specifically developed and focused on them. So Telex is after brand, or what was the other? Olap, which is also a sort of a TikTok channel aimed at
Mhm.
young people, about just news and public life in Hungary. So it was interesting to hear that those are the key sources of information for them. And then I asked, okay, so how are you going to, just make sure that the news of a new product launching is actually covered in those media? And they were, I mean, obviously they're university kids, so they shouldn't have, the 20 some years of experience that I do, but they had no idea how they should approach this challenge. Whereas, you know, people, my colleagues, and our competitors who have been doing this for a while, have adapted to massive shifts in tools, in technology, in trust, but we always strove to support truth and to figure out how we can get truthful uh, but commercial messages into the conversation. So there's, you know, the old instincts of newsworthiness still work. We just have to find the way to explain or to package it and to explain it to our media partners, be they traditional media journalists or influencers. Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just smoke?
No, it's good. But okay, just a little follow up. And what do you think the future of journalism is in Hungary?
Mhm. uh, I try to be optimistic, and I think that now more than ever, there's an environment where people are relying on AI and relying on influencers and blindly trusting them. There's more the need than ever for journalism. Uh, it's everyone's responsibility in the ecosystem to make sure that journalism can can be financed, that journalism can continue, and we need to educate everyone on the business side, so from clients, agencies, that it's our own shared responsibility. I think that the last 2 years is sort of the best proof of the importance of journalism, the best proof that it works, and its importance, and that we need journalism. I hope that everyone who has any input in making business decisions sees that and understands that it's in their best interest for the long term.
Who's your favorite journalist?
It's like asking who's my favorite kid.
Okay. All right, Balázs. I've been speaking to Balázs Szántó. He's the head of Noguchi, which is one of the biggest PR agencies in Hungary. We've been talking about this new media landscape that we're just kind of at the we've just crossed the border into the
Cusp
new media
of, yeah.
landscape. So so many things could change, but it's really exciting, and I really appreciate you talking about it, Balázs.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too.
Excellent. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye bye.